Part 136. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1354. Major issues to minor ones out. Jia Yan looked at the flower god in surprise, and then at the tiger-headed monster and the winged basilisk on the other side. Seeing that they all had no different opinions on what the flower god said, he felt speechless. Kanzng update. So is this how everything works in this star field? In other words, this is their spiritual system's way of resolving grudges? Jia Long smiled again. I'm sorry, since you said you have compatriots, then I can only take action faster, and you too can leave, she. Jia Yan pointed one of his front legs at the flower god like a bush and said calmly, she must not leave. This is my bottom line. Those who sneak attack on me cannot go without any punishment. What? It doesn't make sense. The flower god was startled, and then anger rose in her heart. She was about to say something, but she was shocked to notice that the two gods beside her showed hesitation. This guy is too strong, why don't we leave? After all, although people from our divine system are likely to come, it will probably take some time to get here. It will be bad if we are damaged in any way. The tiger-headed monster whispered to the winged snake on the other side. This is not good, no matter what, she is still a member of my spiritual system. If she leaves, we will not be able to explain to other fellow gods. I dare say that this outsider would not dare to kill her. As soon as the two gods spoke, Jia Yan on the other side had already entered another attack state. With a bang, he entered the subspace. The next time it appeared, it was already in front of the flower god kingdom. A front foot thrust out, with a blue meaning, and fiercely cut open a large area of the flower god kingdom. You two, why don't you come over and help me? The flower god felt the wavering of his compatriots, and quickly screamed and yelled at the two gods. Her voice was a beautiful female voice, but now it sounded a little sinister and less beautiful. Unexpectedly, the more she screamed like this, the more the two gods became determined to give up on her. Flower god, let's go get the reinforcements first. You hold him back first. Don't worry, this guy won't dare to kill you. The tiger-headed monster spoke righteously, but the meaning of his words was not that kind. The winged snake monster on the other side also said to the flower god, all this was originally caused by you attacking others first. It is normal for you to be punished now. Friend of this outsider, you must be careful, don't kill the flower god, otherwise our spiritual system will not be able to let you go. After speaking, the tiger-headed god and the winged snake god both turned around and flew away. And Jia Yan had no intention of stopping them from leaving. After all, he still had hidden dangers, and he still had a lot of questions about the divine system. If he rashly pursued them and went wrong, it would be too much of a loss. And what he really wanted to kill was the flower god creature in front of him. Two bastards. The flower god looked helplessly at his friend from the same god family, who actually left her like this. He felt the malice of the world and cursed loudly. Jia Yan, on the other hand, approached her. Flower god, right? My clone has been in your territory for a while. I originally wanted to coexist with you, but I didn't expect you to attack me first. Now that the peace has been destroyed by you, you will be killed by me. There are no regrets, right? Puff puff. Jia Yan cut with her front legs, cutting off all the green leaves and flower bones that were blocking the front of her body. As for her divine kingdom, it seemed that there was no resistance at this moment. After all, creatures in the realm of gods have problems with endurance. Now that she has been fighting for so long, it is almost the same as having or not having the realm of gods. Jia Yan is the complete opposite. Not to mention he is an evolved beast. Even if he is an ordinary star, he still has a lot of domain energy left. What's more, he is still an evolved beast known for his endurance. Now the sense of energy is still almost full. Of course, there is a certain reason, because Jia Yan just swallowed so much ghost blood, and even a large part of the star-level ghost blood power stayed in his body, which also became a supplement to Jia Yan's subsequent power. It sounds simple, but if it weren't for the evolved beast, it would definitely not be possible to do such a thing at this time. Even because of the explosion of energy, the situation was completely reversed. It was Jia Yan who was caught by the opponent's group of divine creatures. Unlike them, Jia Yan didn't have any spiritual friends. He was alone and would definitely disappear on this inexplicable planet without leaving even a trace. Here, we really may have misunderstood. I just heard from my subordinates that there were fluctuations in the area where you are. I just went over to take a look. I didn't know that I would encounter you at all. The flower goddess pretended to be pitiful, not to mention, her feminine face, in the eyes of creatures who understood her appearance, really had a hint of charm. Oh, you said you can come over and have a look? If you can enter the subspace so easily without letting me notice it, wouldn't my subspace talent be finished long ago? Since you are still unwilling to admit your fault, then well, I won't pursue the truth and will kill you directly. As for your spiritual matters, I won't bother you. You will be dead by then, so why worry about so many things? Jia Yan smiled, a bit ferocious. No, sir. I did it on purpose, because one of my subordinates detected god-level fluctuations over there, so I secretly went over to look at the space where you were, and felt that there was a giant battleship in the space, and then I thought about it. There should be a stellar powerhouse coming from the outside world. I even thought that since you came to our planet and were still unwilling to show up, you might have fallen into a special state or been severely injured. Then I quietly formulated a method to sneak into the vicinity of your battleship. Next you will know what happened. I have been waiting for a long time, and just when you were devouring that extremely powerful thing, I finally couldn't help but take action. Flower God Chu Chu pitifully told Jia Yan everything before and after her attack on Jia Yan. It's normal to say that, after all, the place where Jia Yan landed on the Edessa was right on the edge of the flower god's territory. There were such terrifying fluctuations there, so it was only natural for the flower god to come forward to see what was going on. Of course, it was not that Jia Yan had not guessed this, so he allowed the Edessa, which was already difficult to move, to take the risk and send it into subspace. He originally thought that this would be able to prevent Brother Cheng from prying eyes to the greatest extent, but he didn't expect it to be completely didn't work. It seems that I underestimated the heroes in the world. That's not right. What is her kingdom of God? And how she broke through the cabin of my Edisha? I don't know these yet. Could it be that this is the divine system? What's the difference? By the way, and why did they come to me? I didn't even know they existed. This is a huge problem for me. I originally thought that this flower god was like that, but it turned out that the tiger-headed monster and the winged monster just now basilisks are like this, which means that I may not be able to detect spiritual creatures. With a pop, Jia Yan cut off the last green leaf on the side of the flower god with his front foot. As the green leaf was cut off, the flower god seemed to have suddenly lost all his strength, and his strength plummeted. From the divine level at the beginning, he slowly dropped to the holy level, then from the holy level, to the gold level, and finally it was when it was about to fall below gold that Kankan stopped falling. Gold level low level, that is, starry sky level low level strength. Moreover, at this moment, the flower god's huge body, like a rubber ball, slowly shrank, continued to shrink, and turned into a tiny female human being, only about 1.6 meters tall. It was just something like a green branch that covered her vital parts. Hey! You actually lost your strength. Jia Yan looked at the scene in front of him in amazement, especially the way the flower god had lost his strength, which made him extremely curious. For ordinary creatures in the outside world, even if they lose certain parts of their bodies, it is impossible to cause such a rhythmic loss of power. This, I have lost my divine power. Sir, considering that I am no longer a god, please forgive me. Seeing that his strength had dropped so much in an instant, the flower god said in an extremely miserable tone. Jia Yan begged. This, I really don't know much about the gods. It's better to instead of killing her and let her answer my knowledge about this system of gods. After Jia Yan hesitated for a while, he finally looked at the female human-like creature in front of him, waved it away, and waved it an extremely long distance away. That's my clone. You can follow him in the future. If you do anything strange, I don't mind killing you with my clone. Of course, I know that you must still have means, or the ability to restore the strength of the gods, but you can try it. When the time comes, I will be faster, or you will be faster than you can escape. Jia Yan said this, and his true body flew out like the wind and rushed into the subspace. His true body did not have time to return to the Edisha and digest the remaining star-level ghost blood. Presumably, after digestion, his strength will be greatly improved. Of course, what he had to do before that was to move the Edisha in a certain direction, otherwise it would be too dangerous. Although this matter is difficult to do now, it can still be done as long as you give up your energy. And in front of the flower god who was thrown out by him, a black-haired figure came quickly, and under the sensation of brainwave power, the body of the flower god was stabilized in mid-air. Just go with me, don't make any plans. It turns out that this figure is Jia Yan's clone. When Jia Yan's real body was fighting with flower god and others, Jia Yan's clone quietly came to this battlefield from the subspace. Even if the clone is not strong enough, with the subspace talent and the cooperation with the real body, it can at least help move explosive bombs and so on, which will be of certain help in the war. However, Jia Yan did not expect that the clone came to fight and the battle was over. Instead, he happened to pick up the flower god who had become much smaller and looked like a human female. Yes, sir. Come and collect Wild Escape female anchor, thank you. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1355. The flower god raised his eyes and looked at Jia Yan's clone. Kanzng update. Even though the size and strength of the body were vastly different from the real body, the look and aura of the clone immediately made her understand that this was the clone that had just defeated the flying creature. The god of flowers, whose strength was greatly lost, flew slowly behind Jia Yan. But after a while, Jia Yan finally came around. Tell me, if I take you flying like this, what will happen next? Will your so-called gods of the same god type find us and kill my clone? This flower god was a little flustered and nodded hurriedly. I just wanted to remind you, sir. Oh, just call me Jia Yan. I can't be called an adult. Jia Yan waved his hand. Since your colleagues from the divine system value you so much, I think we'd better land and walk. Remember to put your body anything that can attract their attention, or their breath is restrained, do you understand? Jia Yan turned around and spoke lightly to the woman behind him. Okay, I understand, Mr. Jia Yan. The goddess of flowers sighed. She thought that Jia Yan's clone would take her flying all the way stupidly, but she didn't expect that Jia Yan was still vigilant enough. The two fell to the ground. One was Jia Yan's clone, and the other was the weakened flower god, who was even the lord spirit of this huge territory. But they looked like two ordinary humans walking on the ground. The ground where the two landed was a small village. Jia Yan casually used the power of his brain waves to lift up a piece of women's clothing in the village and threw it in front of the flower god for her to put on. The flower goddess was not too moved, but what surprised Jia Yan was that when she saw Jia Yan looking at her, her face turned red, and she even knew how to hide to the side to prevent Jia Yan from seeing her key parts. Hey, it's strange. Her race should have nothing to do with the human race. Why is there such a shy reaction from the human race? Jia Yan was curious. Master Jia Yan, I am actually a hybrid between the human race and the flower demon clan. That's why I have been secretly supporting the weak human race all these years. Otherwise, given the weakness of the human race, I would have been wiped out long ago. The flower god seemed to know Jia Yan's doubts. After putting on his clothes, he explained to Jia Yan. The green leaves on the surface of her body were combined with the clothes, making it look like she was really wearing ordinary clothes. The women's clothes in this village are extremely plain, but the clothes they wear on her still bring out the beauty of this woman. After all, she is a god, and her appearance is definitely not comparable to that of ordinary human women. In addition, she has been severely injured now, and her expression looks a bit sickly, which makes her even more charming and charming. Sir, I don't know what you are going to ask me to do. She came to Jia Yan and asked slightly nervously. Now that Jia Yan didn't hurt her, she felt a little calmer, but she was still a little worried when she didn't hear Jia Yan's specific answer. I'm not planning to do anything, I just want you to answer some questions for me. Then I'll see if I let you go depending on the situation. Jia Yan looked back at her. Even with Jia Yan's determination, his heart was moved when he saw this woman's face. Even with the perfectly prepared wife Satsamakan, the appearance is almost the same. Even because the strength is much stronger than the other party, the temperament reflected is slightly more extraordinary, so it feels more beautiful. Okay, sir, but I hope that if the answer I give you can help you, you can consider letting me live. The flower god gritted his teeth and said. Oh, let's talk about it then. I still remember your sneak attack on me, Jia Yan sneered. He would not let this woman go just because of her appearance. But if she is really helpful, then even if she is let go, it is not something that cannot be considered. Of course, just answering some common sense questions will never be able to offset her fault. Sir, my name is Luo Longxi, you can call me Longxi. The flower god hesitated for a while and told Jia Yan his real name. Jia Yan didn't know what the real name meant, but nodded. In fact, what he doesn't know is that the true name is like a belief for the gods, and generally they will not be told to others. It is said that if you master the name of the god, you can control the future of the god to a certain extent. Although this is just a legend, her willingness to tell Jia Yan her real name already represents her attitude. It's a pity that all this is like talking to a chicken and a duck, and Jia Yan doesn't understand it at all. Jia Yan nodded indifferently and looked above his head with a strange color in his eyes. It turned out that rainbows suddenly appeared in the sky above our heads. Every branch of that Changhong has an astonishing momentum. What's more important is that each of these creatures in Changhong is extremely huge, flying in the sky, covering almost half of the sky. 10 terrifying creatures arrived, and Jia Yan looked back at the flower goddess Luo Longxi beside him. Under his gaze, something strange in the flower god's eyes flickered, but it quickly went out. She had calculated that in this situation, it was impossible for her to ask for help or anything. And just as Jia Yan was worried, she actually had the means to suddenly regain a certain level of strength, not reaching the level of a god, but about half a star level. But she was not sure about the fighting power of Jia Yan's clone. If it was as weird as the real body, then she suspected that she would be killed by Jia Yan's clone before the top 10 masters came to rescue her. So after some hesitation, she gave up the struggle. And those 10 rainbows were really hidden by the strength of the two of them, and they didn't even notice the two people underneath, and just regarded them as ordinary creatures and flew past them. You've done a very good job, and you have gained my initial goodwill. Jia Yan turned around, smiled and looked at the flower goddess. Lawrence had no choice but to smile bitterly. If she wasn't worried about her life, how could she be so obedient? Well, I think their subordinates will definitely appear in large numbers around here. Let's just treat it as travelers and walk slowly. Along the way, you will tell me everything you know, such as the secrets of your gods, the cultivation methods, the composition of the kingdom of God, and the way you move. Jia Yan said lightly, and then he and the flower god walked straight into the mountain village. The strange thing is that when the two of them appeared here, the people in the mountain villages seemed to deliberately not notice them and were still going about their work. Sir, if we want to talk about our spiritual system, we have to go back more than 1,000,000 years ago. At that time, it was said that there were several mainstream cultivation systems in the entire galaxy, but the strong ones at that time were not very strong. It's so slow that most cultivation systems have been lost in the long river of history. Jia Yan walked all the way, listening to the words of the flower god, but his surprise never disappeared. From the flower god's mouth, he not only heard about the divine system, but also learned a little about the powerful system in the ancient galaxy. He even knew that the era of the explosion of powerful people in the entire galaxy started 800,000 years ago. Started before. The spiritual system is an ancient cultivation system. The creatures in this system regard themselves as gods and the gods of all things, thinking that they control all things. It is a pity that the strength of the strong men of the divine system did not have much advantage at all under the powerful creatures Jia Yan majored in. They were retreating steadily and were finally compressed to the large area they were in now. At this time, some gods of the divine system have sublimated the cultivation system again, and finally some gods have been promoted to the galaxy level. Although the strength of this galaxy class is not strong, it is still considered a galaxy level. In addition, the spiritual system has a unique cultivation method. The probability of promotion was greatly improved compared to ordinary star level, and the result actually allowed them to maintain the territory of the divine system. So, besides the spiritual system, are there other cultivation systems in this galaxy? Jia Yan asked a little strangely. That's right, although many other systems have become increasingly outdated, but they must exist. However, I have never left the spiritual system too far, so I don't know the specific situation. Hua God smiled bitterly. When she came to the star battlefield, she had already gone as far as a distant place. She didn't expect that she, who was considered a genius in the realm of gods and whose combat power was not too weak, would actually make a big mistake here. Regardless of Flora's depression, Jia Yan asked questions one after another like a machine gun. Of course, he would not completely believe the words of the flower god, but these things were all very related. If he told a lie, it would be difficult to get the next one right. Jia Yan asked questions so quickly, she almost had nothing to do with it. The time it takes to conceive will increase the credibility a lot. Then tell me, how do spiritual creatures travel? Jia Yan asked this question seemingly calmly. The way we travel? It's not much different from ordinary creatures in normal times. When fighting, we pass through the kingdom of God. The flower god felt more and more strange. Because the questions Jia Yan asked were not related to ancient times. After all, ancient records from all places are not so clear. It would be okay if Jia Yan did not understand them. But what she found strange was that Jia Yan actually asked a lot of common sense that the creatures in the surrounding star field should know. A thought flashed through her heart like lightning. Could it be that this powerful creature with unique talents actually came from a more distant place? That's not right. Even if you come from a very far away place, since you have come to this stellar battlefield, you are still in such a deep place, so you should also understand such basics. She really didn't understand what Jia Yan did, so she had to regard all of this as Jia Yan's test for her. Anyway, she just wanted to survive, so she answered everything, even the most secret things. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1356. Under the explanation of the flower god, Jia Yan quickly accumulated a huge amount of knowledge about this divine star, the divine system, and even a lot of common sense in the entire galaxy. Ran when You must know that the flower goddess is a member of the ancient gods and maintains the ancient tradition. The way for each god to prove his nobility is to accumulate knowledge. The flower goddess is the same, so through her mouth, Jia Yan seems to be semi-literate. Creatures, almost instantly opened a door to absorb a large amount of knowledge and experience. I see. While walking, the two of them experienced a lot. You must know that the experience and knowledge of flora have reached an extremely rich level. How can you finish learning it in a short time? So these two people were like real ordinary strong men, walking around on the land ruled by the flower god. Occasionally, you will encounter spies from those major gods. If they are suspected, Jia Yan will kill them immediately. After all, these spies are not very strong. They are said to have been killed by local strong men. Even if he kills, no one will doubt him. As the days passed, the flower goddess Luo Longxi also encountered her subordinates searching for her, but she told them honestly, but she had no idea of contacting those subordinates. The future will be the 30th day of our trip. Your flower god's territory is really beautiful, but we can only get a rough idea. I have also learned a lot about your knowledge. Finally one day, Jia Yan came to the flower god and spoke to her lightly. Sir, do you think I am useless and are you going to kill me? Flora asked calmly. Well, do you think I will kill you? Jia Yan sneered. I don't know why, but I always have such worries. I wonder if you will kill me. Flower goddess smiled charmingly and looked at Jia Yan without fear. You must have a backup plan, right? Jia Yan slowly approached the flower god, with a hint of joking in his expression. My lord, I also know. Yes, I did manage to get some backup during this period, but compared to your strength, I'm still not sure, not to mention that you still have your true body. The flower god sighed bitterly. But I won't sit back and wait for death. If you really want to take my life, I will fight to the death, Luo Longxi said solemnly. Jia Yan suddenly burst into laughter. He shook his head. Let's go. I know your backup plan. In fact, when I discovered it half a month ago, I knew I couldn't kill you. As for my true body, you should know that I can't show up yet. What? Lord Jia Yan, are you willing to let me go? Flower god stared in disbelief, his big eyes filled with shock and suspicion. It is normal for her to be suspicious, because after being in contact with him for so long, she has a general understanding of the outsider's mentality. She knows that Jia Yan is not someone who will forget about the sneak attack a month ago just because she is honest. So she already suspected that after Jia Yan roughly understood the basic knowledge that she knew, he would go out of his way and prepare to kill her. But what she didn't expect was that Jia Yan actually said he wouldn't kill her. That's right, didn't you hear what I said? I said I won't kill you, so I won't kill you. Do you still want me to kill you? Jia Yan frowned slightly. Then my lord, I'm leaving. Luo Longxi looked extremely nervous. Seeing Jia Yan wave his hand, she took a step back, but saw that Jia Yan did not pursue her and continued to retreat. But when she retreated more than 100 meters away, Jia Yan's words suddenly rang out again, frightening the god to the point where he almost trembled and wanted to attack first. Fortunately, she endured it, and Jia Yan did not attack her, but wanted to say something. But I don't want the news about my clone and my real body to spread. Just say that you escaped from me that day. You should be able to tell this lie yourself. You are a good storyteller. Elder sister. Jia Yan's laughter lingered in the flower god's ears, and she nodded solemnly, Master Jia Yan, this is natural. I don't want to be said by other gods that I am collaborating with the enemy, so I will treat this month's events as that didn't happen. Very good, then let's go. Don't worry so much. Jia Yan seemed a little disappointed because she was still worried about him, and sighed longly. Flora's expression changed even more. She stepped back faster and faster, and then a rainbow rose into the sky in the city where they last stayed. What? What level of strong man is that? There is such a strong man coming to our city. Maybe they are all demigods. How awesome. It must be a demigod. Haven't you seen that even the demigods in our city dare not come forward? It's amazing. One after another, the residents of the city looked at the flying light in shock. But not long after, another light soared into the sky, quickly flew into the city, and then disappeared into the sky. There was a lot of discussion in the whole city, and some even said that this was the most powerful man in their city who had a great reputation and was able to get both demigods to come and visit him. But what they didn't know was that when he felt the first force, the demigod-level strong man wanted to react, but the next moment, he actually felt a terrifying brainwave force, which knocked him away. Locked so tightly that he didn't dare to move at all. These two guys are at least the highest level of strong men in the demigod level. It's scary. Why do such strong men come to my city? The powerful demigod was so shocked that Flower God and Jia Yan flew away, so naturally they didn't care. This Flower God actually still doesn't understand. After flying a certain distance, Jia Yan's clone fell to the ground. His expression was a little weird, and the power erupting from his body was sometimes strong and sometimes small, as if he couldn't control it. Forget it, let's go back to the Edessa first. I can't control this clone anymore. Jia Yan smiled bitterly. Why didn't he want to kill the Flower God? In fact, his initial plan was to wait until he found out something and kill the Flower God directly. However, he did not expect that in the past few days, his progress in devouring the blood of star-level starry sky ghosts was slowly hindered. He tried his best to undo the devouring, even the power of this clone was slowly sucked back through the faint connection. If a war breaks out today, not to mention killing the Flower God, he will probably destroy even this clone under the hands of the Flower God who hides his strength. Wrong decision. However, the amount of knowledge gained in this month has greatly expanded my horizons. In comparison, killing the Flower God is probably of no benefit. Could it be that trying the so-called Godhead would have any effect on me? Forget it, let's do it next time. This time it was a mistake. As long as we are on this planet and our true form comes back with all its strength, are we still afraid that we won't be able to obtain the Godhead of the God? Jia Yan's clone quickly returned to the Edessa in the subspace. And that huge real body is now really undergoing the washing of endless energy. Under such full washing, even his clone's strength is almost no longer able to be maintained. But this is a good thing, so even if Jia Yan gives up the action of killing the Flower God, he has to return to his true body. On the one hand, the clone can protect himself, and on the other hand, it is easier to let go of the energy and spirit in the body. Return to the true body. On the other side, the Flower God was even more shocked when he saw that Jia Yan actually didn't kill him. Am I wrong in my judgment about Jia Yan? He shouldn't be such a trustworthy person. The Flower God thought for a long time, but couldn't figure out the reason. Of course, she also thought about whether there might be something wrong with Jia Yan's real body, but based on the performance of Jia Yan's clone when she attacked Jia Yan, and the feeling when she later fought with Jia Yan's real body, it can be understood that the strength of the real body is astounding, and the chance of problems occurring during cultivation should be low. It seems that I misunderstood him. That's all. Since I said I won't reveal his background, I won't say it anymore. And he treats me like this, so what if I repay him a little? We might even become allies in the future. Opportunity, this is not without precedent in history. During the hesitation, the Flower God actually changed her view on Jia Yan. Of course, if she said anything about the alliance. This is not her main opinion now, but once this idea is buried, there will be future opportunities. Opportunities will surely arise. It's funny to say that during this month, we pretended to be husband and wife for a while. Husband. Haha. As if thinking of something that happened in the past month, the flower god smiled. Eh? Flower goddess. Just when the flower goddess flew to a certain space, an extremely surprised voice suddenly sounded. Monsters with heads that looked like tiger heads flew from the sky like lightning. He looked at Flora's shrunken body in shock, and then looked at her injuries, in disbelief. Are you still alive? Didn't the outsider kill you in the last battle? Humph, of course you want me to die, but I still have a backup plan. The guy didn't chase me because of his hidden illness. However, my body was too seriously injured and I hid in a certain place for so long before I came out. What? Now that you see me intact, you are unhappy and want to intercept and kill me. The flower goddess looked cold and almost sneered at the tiger-headed monster. Because she knew that the sky and the winged snake never told other gods about their voluntary escape that day, and even said that they couldn't protect themselves despite fighting hard. And now that she has appeared, the lies of the tiger-headed monster and the winged snake creature will definitely be exposed instantly. It is still possible that they will have murderous intentions. However, killing each other in the gods is absolutely prohibited, and their gods retain power for each other. If the tiger-headed monster kills her, then this power will explode, even if it is hidden, then other gods will know that the tiger-headed monster actually dared to kill his colleagues in this divine department, and he would definitely attack them in groups. So the tiger-headed monster dare not. No, just stay alive. Everyone has been looking for you for a long time. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1357. Let's not talk about the flower god for the moment. Jia Yan was constantly devouring it in the Edisha, and then there was a burst of breakthroughs, but he was somewhat unable to digest the star-level ghost blood. You must know that this has never happened before. The body of the evolved beast has always been Jia Yan's confidence to swallow any material. But now it is actually slightly hindered when swallowing the blood of this star-level ghost. This is normal. After all, the star-level starry sky ghost is a bit weaker than the average star-level powerhouse, but it is still a real star-level. It is normal that its blood essence is difficult to absorb. After Jia Yan understood this, he remembered the essence and blood of his predecessors that he had swallowed before. Now he thought it must have been a long time. The resistance in the essence and blood disappeared before he could swallow it, even though he had experienced pain, life, and death. But it won't be stuck like this for a long time. When Jia Yan felt like he had nowhere to start, and was unable to go anywhere due to the ghost blood in his body, he felt a creature flying over in the normal space outside the Aditha. It turned out to be the scorpion creature Bes. This creature fought in person on the day Jia Yan was killed, and the battle resounded for thousands of kilometers. Bes saw this terrifying god with his own eyes. He defeated the three major gods, and seemed to have seriously injured the flower god. Then he attacked Jia Yan has become more conscientious. Sir, there is a human from the immortal city ahead who is coming to ask for a meeting. Bes of the Scorpion tribe knew that Jia Yan was here, but he would not come here on weekdays. Even when the gods investigated Bes, they would let Bes go as if they had not seen him. Because after understanding the inside story, the group of gods already knew that the strength of the outsider behind Bes had almost reached a level that they could not even imagine. Even if the gods of their gods could join forces to kill the outsider, they would not be able to kill the outsider. Perhaps they had to pay a certain price, so they gave up this seemingly reasonable action and allowed Jia Yan to exist. After all, on this planet, although there are not too many stellar-level outsiders, there are still quite a few. Those from the divine system will occasionally encounter some invincible beings, and then they will give up fighting. That kind of terrifying star-level battle, and then not long after, those powerful star levels will naturally achieve what they want to do on this god star and leave directly. That's right, this is the shrinking turtle method pursued by the gods on this planet. They are doing the same to Jia Yan now. As long as Jia Yan does not make any more provocative moves against them, they will tolerate whatever Jia Yan wants to do after he is released from seclusion. After all, the flower goddess is not dead, right? Bess, tell him to put his stuff down and just leave. Jia Yan exuded a burst of brainwave power and said to the scorpion tribe who was approaching outside the subspace where Edisha was. Okay, although Bess did not see Jia Yan, he once again heard the order from the Lord God, which was the greatest encouragement to him. Being able to communicate with a god frequently, and such a powerful god, he felt that his future would be smooth sailing, and even rebuilding the Scorpion clan would not be impossible. Of course, even if their group of scorpions were exterminated, it would only be in name only. The number of people of the same clan scattered around was at least several times the number who were killed. So he had made a decision. After taking revenge, he would gather up those scorpion clans and then establish another scorpion clan. He left the belongings of the so-called immortal clan messenger and then left far away. Not long after, a brainwave force picked up the pile of items, which turned out to be boxes one by one, and lifted them into the subspace. This so-called crystal of faith, I felt last time, had some nourishing effect on my true body. I wonder if it will have any effect on my current situation. After Jia Yan took the boxes in, he didn't think much, but opened these boxes one by one. Although they looked huge to humans, they were not even toys in his eyes. For Jia Yan's size, the crystals of faith inside are only about the size of fleas in human eyes. Jia Yan stuck out his mouth part and sucked the crystal of faith in one of the boxes directly into his mouth. Puff! When the crystal of faith entered his mouth, he suddenly felt a sense of relief. Hey, it's actually really good for my current condition, so I'll just use it. I don't know if these are enough. Jia Yan said to himself lightly, and then took out boxes of faith crystals, which accounted for 80% of the Fi'u clan's stock of faith crystals, and was actually sucked into his mouth like this. Well, it is indeed not enough, but it has played a big role in my current state. At least I can use the clone again without any impact. In this case, then I will use my clone to go to the outside world to get more crystals of faith. Especially the flower goddess, I have let her go, how can I still be stingy with the crystals of faith? To their gods, in other words, there should be many crystals of faith. Jia Yan thought for a moment, and then sent out his clone that had just gained new power from his body. The Edissa is outside the subspace. Nabes has been guarding here for a long time. Even for him, this work started more than half a year ago. It's just that the location was changed, and at that time he had to worry about visitors from the outside, but it was different now. After seeing a god pass above his head, and then leave with a fearful look, he knew that he would protect this place. In fact, there is no need to worry about his mission, because even the gods are extremely afraid of the god behind him, so what else does he need to worry about? Under such circumstances, he was a little tired. He had just sent something into the Lord God's space portal today. He thought that nothing would happen anymore, so he knelt down and rested slowly. Puff! Suddenly, the subspace was distorted, and a black-haired Jia Yan clone flew out of it. Lord God Envoy! The Bess was startled and quickly stood up. The rapid movement of his huge body caused the surrounding ground to shake. He stood up straight, afraid that Jia Yan would say he was unruly. Well, you've done a good job. Just keep it like this. I'll come back as soon as I go. Jia Yan didn't point out that he was the clone of his real body, but said calmly. In fact, for Bess, there was some speculation in his mind. After all, Jia Yan's aura and his strength were not consistent with his aura, which only showed that his own understanding of power far exceeded the level of strength. There is only one explanation for the situation, and that is that the black-haired human race he saw may be a clone of the god. Therefore, he was extremely respectful to Jia Yan's clone. Even though he was not so sure, he still showed enough courtesy. Jia Yan flew all the way, and at a certain moment, he occasionally felt a god flying above his head. He only hit his aura slightly, and even if the other party saw him, he did not show any emotion. It seems that these gods appear here to guard against Jia Yan's true body. However, whether they know about Jia Yan's clone is also unknown. In addition, Jia Yan's true body has also obtained those crystals of faith, having the strength to fight once, which makes him less afraid. The territory of the goddess of flowers is several thousand kilometers long, which sounds big, but for a star-level person, especially for a subspace existence like Jia Yan, he can reach it in an instant even if the subspace is affected by the planet, so he is not afraid of any other gods at all. Of course, if no one knew the identity of his clone, he wouldn't take the initiative to reveal anything. After all, he wanted to use this clone to ask for something from the flower god. Flying over a land boundary, Jia Yan frowned slightly, let out a long sigh, and flew downwards. It turns out that this was the former immortal city. It is said that it was once because the current immortal city is in ruins, and many foreign armies are besieging the immortal city. I don't know if these armies were instructed by some gods to destroy the immortal city here. After all, they didn't dare to do anything to Jia Yan, but to destroy the place where his avatar had been. Is this okay? They also don't believe that Jia Yan really has any sense of belonging to the immortal city, so they are almost merciless when they take action. It's a pity that they don't understand. If they hadn't seen the scene with their own eyes, they might not care so much, but now they have seen it, especially the cry of a little girl in the city lord's palace below. I won't sit back and ignore it. Originally, for existences like them, destroying a city or saving a city was already done casually, as long as it felt comfortable. Now that he heard the little girl crying that he often heard, Jia Yan felt uncomfortable, so it was reasonable for him to take action. For him, it was a piece of cake. Haha, what kind of city lord is this? Die. In the Lord's palace of Immortal City, a creature that had reached the starry sky level waved his weapon with great joy. Puff. But just when he was about to kill the city lord in front of him who was personally appointed by Jia Yan, his head suddenly exploded. Humph, even the city lord I appointed dared to kill them all. Let me kill them all. The city lord was holding his children, shivering all over. For an earth-level creature, such a war scene was almost the biggest crisis he had ever encountered in his life. But when he heard Jia Yan's voice, the city lord suddenly raised his head. Master, Master Jia Yan. You are finally here. Master. He quickly knelt down, but before he could persuade his children to kneel down too. Bang 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 bang. Sound after sound, explosions sounded everywhere in the city lord's mansion, the street where the city lord's mansion is located, and even in the entire immortal city. This. He looked around dumbfounded, and was shocked to find that the heads of all the creatures that attacked the city exploded, and they were too dead to die. Come and collect Wild Escape Female Anchor. Thank you 21010. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1358. Only then did the prefecture-level city lord realize that the terrifying army that they, the immortal city, could not resist at all, actually looked like trash in front of Lord Jia Yan, something that could be easily solved with the power of brainwaves. U. After Jia Yan did this, he turned around and walked out of the house as if he had done something extremely simple. He looked up at the sky. Although no one else could see anything in the sky, he kept his gaze fixed on something. If you want to fight, just start a fight. What's the point of playing such a little trick? God! Jia Yan shouted loudly, and there seemed to be something twisted in the sky there. He quickly left, but he didn't dare to look at him. God! The city lord and subordinates inside were all dumbfounded the next moment. In such a small battle in the immortal city, gods actually appeared? Moreover, This god was scared away by Master Jia Yan with just one word. This is like suddenly seeing a fantasy story. Isn't Lord Jia Yan obviously a saint? Why did he suddenly come into conflict with the gods again, and it seemed that even the gods were afraid of him? This was so shocking that the two city lords looked at each other in shock. For a while, no one dared to disturb Jia Yan. But the other little figure is different. Ah, sir. The little girl threw herself into Jia Yan's arms. This scene scared a group of adults out of their wits. They didn't know what extent the terrifying strong man had reached. Such an existence, Na Mei Pian actually dare to offend. Mei Ping's father saw the scene from a distance and was so frightened that his face instantly turned pale. But what shocked the people around him even more was that the black-haired and black-eyed Master Jia Yan actually did not dodge or use energy to separate her when the beauty came towards her, but let her hug it up. Haha, you must be scared, don't be afraid. Jia Yan smiled and actually hugged the little girl under the disbelieving eyes of a group of creatures. Oh my god, what did I see? Master Jia Yan, you are so kind to my daughter? Although I have known that he taught Mei Ping, I never thought that his relationship with Mei Ping is so good. Mei Ping's father and another prefecture-level city lord looked at each other, and their emotions completely exploded at this moment. They were not stupid, and they quickly realized that Jia Yan would show up to help them, probably because he had Mei Ping in mind. Otherwise, how could such a being care about the fate of a city with which he had little connection? After they looked at each other, they all felt deeply that this relationship should be used in the future. Even if they no longer trouble Master Jia Yan, as long as they say that Mei Ping is protected by Master Jia Yan, it will be enough to scare a group of people who want to the foreign or human forces that have an idea of Xianxian City dare not move. And what happened today is a lesson from the past. This time, passing through Xianxian City, or what the Avatar randomly discovered, the shaky Xianxian City actually regained its great reputation. Even after a massacre, the population was already reduced to 10 houses and 9 empty houses, but the status of Xianxian City was even greater. It has been consolidated, and even because of these dead people, the immortal city that will be rebuilt next will have greater potential. The power of the two city lords who were originally weak will be more stable. After all, among the many people who died, it's against them. Coupled with Jia Yan's relationship, any creature that dares to dismount them, as long as it does not reach the god level, must really think carefully about it. But these are not things Jia Yan is waiting to see. For him, a small city is no longer in his eyes. After solving the incident in Immortal City, he continued on his way. Mei Ping clamored and wanted to follow, but was held back by her father, the city lord. Jia Yan didn't say that he didn't want to take this little beauty with him, but after thinking about it, he felt that if he really took her with him, she would be in greater danger in the future. After all, people just think that Jia Yan has met the once friendly person a little bit. The human race will always be in trouble, and they will help readily. However, if they deliberately have a good relationship with Mei Ping, then they will be noticed by interested people, and Mei Ping will be in danger. So Jia Yan also persuaded Mei Ping, and then flew up. This time, the goal was the real flower god's territory. The flower god's territory is located in the middle of a district. It occupies a small area, just over 1,000 kilometers square. On Earth, it is not as big as the Chinese nation. However, in such a large area, there is a god-level powerful person. The person sits in charge. And this god-level person seemed to have been wandering in the outside world for a long time. When she returned, it seemed that other gods had already faintly extended their hands to this place. Of course, now that the flower goddess has returned, the gods who are still relatively friendly will not act too domineeringly. God, there is a human creature outside who calls himself Jia Yan and comes to see you. Suddenly, one day in the territory of the flower goddess, a messenger of the gods came to the flower goddess who was recovering from her injuries, knelt down and spoke to her with great respect. I understand, let me in. Flower God raised his eyebrows lightly and said helplessly. Yes. The messenger of the gods was a young human girl. Seeing the attitude of her own gods, she felt that the person named Jia Yan might not be a kind person, and her feelings for Jia Yan suddenly didn't improve much. Outside the flower god's territory, Jia Yan, who had black hair, was waiting outside. Come in with me, be careful. God doesn't like mess, so don't touch anything dirty. The woman who was served by the spirit came to Jia Yan and let him in. Jia Yan smiled and didn't care about her, just nodded slightly. By the way, you should be the messenger of a certain god. Although my god is a little weaker, not all of you can bully him. When you see my god later, please stop talking nonsense and kneel down. Those who should kneel, those who should kowtow should kowtow. The woman spoke angrily, and it was obvious that she had received a lot of such anger recently. Jia Yan was stunned. He would definitely not kneel or kowtow, and the Liang Na flower god did not dare to let him do it. He just did not expect that there were similar forces in the system of gods. He thought that the gods were very powerful. Be friendly to each other. Okay, please step back. When Jia Yan was brought to the room where the flower god was by the divine attendant, the flower god had already calmly asked her to go out. Yes, although the divine servant was unwilling, he still accepted the order helplessly. Your place is quite nice. The god of flowers is still the god of flowers. They have only been apart for a few days, so of course there will be no change. Jia Yan was somewhat interested in the room where the flower god was. The place looked huge. It was obviously a room, but it seemed like there was a world. It reached a room several thousand meters high. There were huge trees inside that looked like real trees. There are gauze hanging down, making people look as beautiful as a fairyland. The goddess of flowers is sitting at the bottom of a giant tree. She is still the size of an ordinary woman, but her body is also dressed in gauze. Her looming figure looks like a real goddess. Of course, from the perspective of the spiritual realm, she is certainly a goddess, but in Jia Yan's view, there is of course a gap between the goddess he imagined. But this does not hinder her beauty. She is really as beautiful as the beauty who walked out of the painting. Haha, Master Jia Yan, you are just kidding me. This is just the residence of a small god. There are many more beautiful residences than this in the divine realm. The flower goddess responded lightly, as if the last period of her previous weakness was over, and now she has regained a bit of the majesty that a god should have. How is your injury? Jia Yan did not follow her words, but asked about her injury. We can't return to the peak for the time being. We need a lot of crystals of faith, the flower god responded honestly. Oh. Jia Yan choked on his words. He was here to get the crystal of faith, but the other party actually wanted to use it too. Master Jia Yan, you must have something to do with me this time. Please tell me. I know you must have avoided other spies from the gods, but after all, my place is a god's palace, and the spies around me are extremely, if there are too many, your information is likely to be leaked, which will cause me some trouble. Flower God didn't mince words, because after spending half a year with Jia Yan, she had figured out Jia Yan's way of doing things. Okay, then I'll say it. Jia Yan smiled bitterly and shook his head, then told his purpose. That's right, I just want a little bit of your crystal of faith, I can use it. When the flower god heard Jia Yan's words, he was stunned, then looked deeply at Jia Yan, and finally nodded, okay, I will give you 100 boxes. This is the maximum limit I can give you. Jia Yan knew that the crystals of faith were loaded in the same boxes he used before. Before, he only had 10 boxes, but now there are actually 100 boxes. This is an amount that is equivalent to 80% of the inventory of the Tenfeiyu clan, even if for the flower god, it is definitely not a small amount. That's enough, Thank you, Jia Yan nodded. You're welcome. You spared my life. I haven't thanked you yet. But after this time, don't look for me anymore. If other gods know that I have dealings with you, it will be very difficult for me in this divine system. Mix in. The flower goddess La Longxi said helplessly to Jia Yan. Okay, I'll take it and leave. I won't bother you again. We'll be clean from now on. Jia Yan nodded solemnly. More than half a day later, a quietly flying figure flew out of the flower god's territory. Oh, this flower god has given me face. I looked and she actually gave me 70% of her inventory. This will slow down the recovery of her strength a lot. Just clear 2 clears. I have this 100 boxes should be enough for me to digest the blood of those stellar ghosts. Jia Yan looked at a starry sky-level spy-like creature in front of him and quietly moved away. Although there are spies for each other among the spiritual systems, they are not very strict, so Jia Yan's clone can come without anyone noticing. 89 You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1359. Boom 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 boom. On a piece of land, terrifying destructive power was erupting. W.QDD. In this continent, the gods are the strongest, and even the ordinary gods did not dare to get too close after sensing this terrifying fluctuation. That bastard outsider actually caused such a big disturbance, even within the territory of our divine system. Tell us where to put your face. One by one, the gods approached the sky above this land, looking at the huge fluctuations below, not knowing what to do. Forget it, can't we go against him just because of this little fluctuation? Anyway, we tolerated it before, and there's nothing more we can tolerate now. When he comes out of seclusion, we can just let him go. Several gods seemed to be extremely afraid of the creature that caused fluctuations. Even if the gods suggested that the creature might make a sneak attack when it was making a breakthrough or practicing some kind of practice, they still refused. Forget it, there aren't many cities or resource areas nearby, so let him do the work. Several gods decided on the strategy and felt that it was better to let it go, so they left here one by one. I'm scared to death. So many gods. Under the earth, a saint-level creature, ignored by the gods one after another, only raised its head in a frightened and prostrate state when the surrounding movement and momentum completely disappeared. Even though he knew that he was a subordinate of the god behind him and should not kneel down and worship other gods without the permission of his own god, he really didn't dare. This is Bess of the Scorpion clan. At that moment, as many as a dozen gods came to the sky. For him, it was something he would never experience in his life. It seems that among those gods, I also see my enemies. He smiled bitterly. The so-called enemy was the one who destroyed his race, but when the other party saw his great enemy, he didn't even recognize him. That's right. Does a god need to remember a holy creature that hates him? The difference in strength between the two was so great that it was almost as big as heaven and earth. The gods didn't need to remember Bess at all. It's a good thing I didn't remember it, otherwise recognizing Bess in this situation might lead to complications. Even in this situation, Bess did not forget his mission and stayed in front of the huge fluctuations behind him. He had even thought about whether he would still protect him if those gods attacked. However, before the answer to this question could be found, it had already become an eternal mystery due to the departure of a group of gods. Even he himself did not know what to do in that situation. The person who caused the fluctuation in the rear was naturally Jia Yan. But now Jia Yan, even if it causes such a huge fluctuation, he is not without any defense. Humph, it's good that these guys left, otherwise we will have to work hard. Of course, with the experience of being sneak attacked last time, I won't be so easily attacked again now. Jia Yan did not do anything during the half year he walked with the flower god. He learned so much about the gods. Now he is prepared for the fighting methods that may be caused by the gods. Plan. Even if they made a sudden sneak attack like the flower god did back then, he would be able to react now instead of being unable to detect it. There is nothing I can do about my current fluctuation, because it will be completely swallowed up. Jia Yan felt his body fluctuate, and then continued to crouch down calmly. Such fluctuations continued for 3 more days. When the 3rd day came, after several loud bangs, the entire land turned into scorched earth. The Edessa swayed slightly in the subspace. Fortunately, its hull was strong and was not damaged by such fluctuations. After these fluctuations, the entire land returned to calm. Bess was blown backwards for several kilometers by the wave. When the wave calmed down completely, he cautiously approached the place quietly. He didn't see any large explosions, and then he lay down to guard the place. The performance of the Scorpion clan made Jia Yan nod in the subspace. That's right, the fluctuation just now was a manifestation of him completely devouring the ghost's blood. Now, the fluctuations all over his body are extremely fierce, and the power of the domain is involuntarily squirming from his body, making it difficult for Jia Yan to control it. This is a special state after a big step forward in strength. This state is not so easy to eliminate, but Jia Yan is not in a hurry. In the Aditha space next to him, there are boxes of exquisite small boxes. There used to be many crystals of faith in them, but now they are empty. In fact, more than 100 boxes of crystals of faith are completely empty. Devoured by Jia Yan. It was a coincidence that Jia Yan used the crystals of faith obtained from the flower god. He was almost using them up before he felt that he could digest the star-level ghost blood. Finally, he thought about it and used the remaining. A small amount of the crystal of faith was also swallowed into the body, giving it a little more as a easing force. Are those gods cautious? Or are they timid? They didn't come to make a sneak attack even if they had such a great opportunity. But even if they come, I have a backup plan. Jia Yan stood up from the Edessa calmly, with a hint of joy in his expression. Because the harvest this time was greater than Jia Yan's own imagination. After all, it is so difficult for even star-level evolved beasts to absorb ghost blood. How can it be an ordinary thing? Very good. I think my current state is not far from the peak of the elementary level of a star. I can definitely be regarded as a powerful being in the elementary level of a star. Jia Yan's compound eyes were bright. And with my strength and ability to cross-level combat, even if I don't use special means now, I can probably fight with an intermediate-level stellar-level creature, but that intermediate-level star-level creature in the stellar academic field, the creatures have been in the intermediate level for a long time, and they have probably reached the middle level of the intermediate level. I should not be his opponent yet. Jia Yan quickly figured out his own strength. Of course, this is only a rough distinction. After all, there are too many variables in a real battle. For example, what kind of backhand Jia Yan uses, maybe even the star-level mid-level one is killed by him. On the other hand, even if he was defeated by that star-level mid-level person with another move, it was still possible. After all, if the battle could be calculated, then everyone would not have to fight, and the result would be known after just a quick calculation. Anyway, my current strength is still inferior to that group of creatures from the stellar domain, and they must have clearly understood my shortcomings and advantages after the previous battle. If we face each other again, some of my methods may have no effect. After thinking so much, Jia Yan didn't have much fear. After all, before his strength improved, he was able to survive under those star-level men. Now that his strength has improved by leaps and bounds, what's the point of being afraid in turn? What's more, even if they had calculated their strength and means, they certainly never thought that my strength would advance to such an extent in such a short period of time, right? It caught me off guard, not to mention whether they would be able to unite. If they are destroyed, it may be another big loss like the last time, and then their military morale will be unstable. Jia Yan thought so much and smiled slightly. Anyway, no matter what, the current improvement in strength is a huge good thing for him. Also, the crystal of faith on the divine star actually helps me a lot, although it is not as domineering as the ghost blood. As long as it is swallowed in large quantities, it is still possible to increase my strength. So, Jia Yan stood up from the ground and headed towards the outside world. Bess lay on the ground bored. In fact, for such a long time, he has not even seen the true form of the god. He has only heard the oracle a few times with his own ears. He also has some doubts about whether he is worthy of the god. Love. However, he also thought that the Lord God did not accept other divine servants and did not let others stay outside the kingdom of God. He must have a good impression of him. Find bookstore. But the regret in his heart that he had never even seen the true form of the God was always there, which also made him have no foundation and felt that he was not valued very much. But just today, after he felt a large wave of fluctuations, he was just about to lie down and find a new place to sleep, but suddenly he felt a wave of fluctuations in the space. What? There is actually a fluctuation, and such a terrifying fluctuation in strength. Is it difficult? Could it be? His expression suddenly changed. Bess giant scorpion's head suddenly raised up at a certain moment. And the moment he raised his head, a terrifying huge creature, far larger than Bess's 200-meter body, slowly stretched out a giant foot from the twisted space. Even though he had expected it, when he actually saw this scene, Bess was still so shocked that he couldn't control himself. The creature that emerged from the distorted space did not seem to be aware of Bess's existence. Instead, it held its head high and stepped out of the space. He raised his head and stared at somewhere above the sky. Humph, a strange god is here to see me. Is there something wrong? This terrifying huge black creature calmly said these words to the sky it was looking at. It's okay, sir, I'll leave right now. Suddenly, a voice came from the sky, which seemed to contain a hint of panic. Not long after, the sky no longer looked like any living thing existed, and now, the huge black flying creature slowly lowered its head. He stared at Bess, who was already kneeling down and kowtowing repeatedly. Bess, you did a good job, the creature said softly. Everyone go and save Wild Survival female anchor. My new work is as eunuch-proof as giant mosquito. 45,898, reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1360. Boom boom boom. In the sky, two creatures are flying in the sky. Woos. These are two creatures, one large and one small. One is huge, reaching a length of 1 kilometer. The other one is much smaller, only 200 meters long. Bess felt that he was now in a dream. You know, this is unscrupulous flying. On this planet, even if the planet is huge enough, there are so many forces, gods, and foreign star-level experts that there are also a lot of them, so even the truly powerful ones don't dare to fly unscrupulously. For ordinary strong people, if they accidentally offend any gods or stellar adults, they will die without a burial place. Just like Bess, although his strength has reached the holy level, he has lived for so long. Except for one time when it was confirmed that there was no danger, he flew a certain distance in a desert place. This was his first time since then. Such an indulgent flight. Oh my God, we are flying like this, is it really okay? After flying for a long time, even though the person beside him was a god, he became nervous and couldn't help but ask such words. The behemoth beside Bess was naturally Jia Yan, who had regained all his strength and appeared from the Edisha. Hearing Bess's question, he glanced at him lightly, with me here, what can happen? Bess was glanced at by Jia Yan, and he instantly felt a sudden huge force coming on him. His entire momentum was extinguished and he was about to fall to the ground. Fortunately, Jia Yan felt that there was still no way to hide his strength. He released a brainwave power involuntarily, almost killing this relatively obedient subordinate, so he quickly restrained himself. Only then did Bess avoid being directly killed by Jia Yan. After this, Bess didn't dare to speak anymore. He just roared along beside Jia Yan under Jia Yan's earth-shattering momentum. There was too much movement. The creatures below the earth had no time to feel what was flying in the sky, and were suddenly suppressed by this terrifying star-level momentum, and almost died in one breath. Fortunately, Jia Yan still restrained himself. Although he didn't mind killing creatures, he would not kill them without reason. After flying all the way, finally, the territory where the first god was located appeared in front of Jia Yan. "Sir, this, ahead is the territory of the northern god, we." Bess was already frightened when he saw this familiar territory. You must know that his original Scorpion clan territory was near the northern god. He was oppressed by the northern god's momentum and had a natural fear of it. "Huh? Are you scared?" Jia Yan turned around and asked him. No, Bess quickly lowered his head and was speechless. He didn't know what to say, because he knew the rules between gods. Even if other gods came to the territory of another god, even if they were passing by, they would restrain their aura, instead of being so majestic. Past. Which god would be comfortable with this? What he didn't know was that Jia Yan and Bess flew out of the place where Jia Yan had previously retreated, and the news had long been known to the northern god, the only true god in the northern god's territory. The outsider actually rushed over like this? Does he want to cause trouble for me? I didn't covet him before. The northern god was anxious in his palace. The strength of the outsider could be seen just by his momentum. He was actually an existence that had reached the primary level of a star. Even if he had just broken through, he still belonged to the primary level of a star. Level. Even on this planet, the primary high-level star is definitely one of the super beings. Compared with a mere primary god like him, there is simply a difference in strength between heaven and earth. After all, there is a difference in strength between gods and stars, and there is also a difference in level. If he really faces that foreign guy and is not killed by 3 or 5 moves, he is considered to be quite strong. Humph, those guys in our divine system are all laughing at me. If I let him pass like this, he will definitely be unable to hold his head up in the future. But if I don't let him pass, are we still going to fight? It's simply unreasonable. Who knew that this guy's strength would jump from the ordinary star level when he fought with Flower God and the others to the high level of star level? But he was not in the right state at that time. He shouldn't have broken through in just a few days. Right. Now they are causing trouble for our divine system. The northern god was extremely helpless. He wanted to rush up and argue with the outsider who flew by, but he didn't have the courage. In addition, he had never dealt with a constant breath level creature before, so now he had a trace of fear in his heart. Then he actually watched helplessly as the huge flying creature above his head flew over his territory in such an earth-shattering way. It even flew over his largest main city, the city where he himself was, and even flew overhead. Some of the creatures were affected by the terrifying aura, and many of them fainted. This. Gang gritted his teeth and flew over the main city of the northern god with the gods around him. He thought that the northern god must be furious and rushed to cause trouble for them, but he found that although the aura of the northern god was also faintly erupting, still didn't dare to rush. Bess's whole body was in bad shape. He looked at the god next to him. He still didn't know the name of the god beside him, nor did he know how terrifying his strength was, but now the scene made him understand. That is, the Lord God he serves is actually a man of astonishing strength. Haha, but the northern god used to bully my clan every day, but now he didn't even dare to see the face of my Lord God. He just let me and my lord pass through his main city together and fly over his head. He didn't even dare to see me. Don't dare to stop it, this is so satisfying. Bess is a Scorpion tribesman who is not afraid of trouble. Even if he showed some timidity before, it was just because of his lack of strength. But now that he knows that his master may be far stronger than he imagined, he was first shocked by Jia Yan's strength for a while, and then the boldness in his heart grew like that. Sir, why don't we wait until we arrive at the location of the alien star-level god? Let me go there first and let him show up to greet you. After all, your strength exceeds that of the northern god. Bess came up with a new trick. Jia Yan pondered for a moment, then nodded, that's right. That's right, the direction he and Bess are heading now is to find an outsider god that Bess knows is the closest to them, that is, the location of an outsider star level. This stellar level of strength can be surrounded by a group of powerful gods and forcefully create an area similar to the territory of gods. It is definitely not that simple, but will Jia Yan be afraid? In fact, Jia Yan dared to be so bold on this planet because he had long known from the flower god that there was no one on this star of gods who had reached the mid-level strength of a star. Not to mention the mid-level star level, even the peak-level star level, there is no one, at most there are one or two who have reached the high-level star level, that is, the strong ones who are similar to the current Jia Yan. This still includes there are only one or two gods. So Jia Yan is afraid? In his opinion, even if there are any high-level stellar creatures, their strength is at most the same as that of an ordinary high-level stellar creature. There are one or two such creatures in the team that captured him in the stellar academic field. Well, it's not like he was fooled around. So he is not afraid at all. At least now it seems that he can almost cover the sky with one hand on this planet. Hearing that Jia Yan agreed with what he said, Bess's eyes instantly lit up. In fact, this approach is dangerous for him. For example, when the star-level expert saw Bess, the so-called god envoy, he actually dared to ask him to go out in person to greet Jia Yan, the new star-level player. He became angry from shame and directly killed Bess. But considering Jia Yan's strength, Bess still did this. In fact, he had wanted to do this for a long time. He was hated by a god, but that god couldn't do anything to him. This feeling makes Bess sad just thinking about it. The adventurous element is roaring with joy. So next, in front of the place where the terrifying momentum swept across, a group of creatures that had reached the holy level were waiting in the distance. According to their thoughts, it was the person from the distance. A terrifying and powerful man wants to be a guest at the place where his star-level gods live, so they can just welcome him in. What they didn't expect was that what they were waiting for was actually a Scorpion clan individual who was only at the saint level. I am the attendant of our Lord God. Please let me go over and see your god. Bess pretended to be imposing and looked at the group of creatures in front of him calmly. Even though these creatures were similar in strength to him, their eyes suddenly changed when they heard Bess calling himself God's envoy. They know that even though their strength is similar to that of this self-proclaimed God's attendant, in fact, their status is really very different from that of a creature that can reach the level of God's attendant. God's attendant represents a creature that can walk in the presence of gods. Just like this time, the coming Scorpion tribe actually spoke for the Lord God. To them, this was an extremely powerful proof of the God's grace. Okay, Lord Divine Attendant, please come with me. A saint-level captain quickly came out and respectfully invited Bess to the place where his god was. Humph, come on, let my Lord God level up. You can't bear this responsibility. Bess snorted coldly. Although the saint in front had the same strength as him, he did not dare to have any unpleasant thoughts and quickly bowed his head respectfully. But when the leader asked Bess what the name of his family's god was, Bess's face changed, and then became serious again. My master's strength far exceeds that of your gods. How can you know his name? He was about to say something more, but after he said these words, an indifferent voice suddenly sounded not far in front of them. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1361. Oh? Your master is far more powerful than me? Haha, I didn't know that such a great existence was here. Come and tell me how you can surpass me. A terrifying force pulled the base forward. Bess was shocked. This power was simply not something he could resist. He immediately wanted to beg for mercy or ask for help from the adults behind him. However, when I thought about the strength of my lord, I was no longer afraid. You must know that it sounds far away, but in fact, the territory of this stellar god is only a few hundred kilometers in size. The speed and strength of my god are important. It's too late to come to the rescue at the critical moment. Bess forced himself to calm down, and then he saw his body coming to a huge city. In the center of the city, there is a huge house where thousands of people are worshipping. It is more than 10 kilometers in size and about 5 kilometers in height. It can be said to be a giant. Bess fell towards the giant house. In the courtyard of this house, a creature that was as large as 1 kilometer was quietly waiting for the base. Are you the one who said that your spirit is far stronger than mine? This creature resembles a long-horned beetle, which can be described as insect-like. This. Bess said the other party's aura was suppressed, and he was almost scared to death on the spot. However, he thought about it and gritted his teeth. Humph, of course my master's strength is beyond your imagination. Don't you know about the battle more than half a year ago? He snorted coldly, increasing his momentum. Half a year ago, it turned out to be this person who fought with the creatures of the divine system. How dare you speak so loudly? How can it be that I have been able to stand proudly in the divine system for such a long time? With your words, it looks like you have to tear it to pieces to relieve my hatred. The beetle creature was about to take action, but Bess still looked at him coldly. Huh? You're not afraid yet? It seems that after that, a lot of things happened that made you confident in your master. Tell me, come here and prepare something to say for him. When my lord comes, you must go out to greet him personally, Bess said. What? Bastard, our Lord God, why are you so arrogant in welcoming your lord? The bull creature didn't respond that day. A semi-god level creature on his side, a strong man who had reached a semi-star level, jumped out directly. If he didn't have a little bit of customization in his heart, he might have struck with a blow. Killed Bess. After all, as a demigod who serves the gods, he has a certain right to speak in front of the gods. Although scolding Bess at this moment seems a bit overstepping his bounds, it is also in line with the psychology of the long-horned creature. My lord is very powerful. If you don't believe it, you can feel it for yourself. Bess looked at the demigod coldly, his words full of disdain. Even the gods dare not speak so loudly to him. Why does this demigod dare to be so arrogant? The demigod coldly released his brainwave power and enveloped the area where Jia Yan was. As a weak person, he did not dare to release his brainwave power to explore a star-level person. But now that Bess has spoken, the god far away from the territory must be able to hear this. So it wouldn't be disrespectful if he used his brainwave power to investigate. Puff. When he just used the power of brainwaves to come into contact with Jia Yan's terrifying power, he suddenly received an independent counterattack from the power. The entire monster's body spurted out a mouthful of blood, and its body shrank. Huh? Is it really so powerful that you can make a demigod with a level equivalent to half a star emit blood with just your breath? The beetle creature did not directly detect Jia Yan's aura because of the polite courtesy. Seeing how unbearable his subordinate was at this moment, he suddenly had an intuitive feeling about Jia Yan's strength. How about it? Is my master's strength worthy of your personal greeting? When Bess saw that the adult behind him was actually so terrifying, with such a breath that even a demigod would spurt blood, he suddenly felt even more excited and more confident. Well, okay, I'll go greet this friend in person. The bull creature pondered for a moment, then flew out of the huge courtyard. A radius of several hundred kilometers was no different to the star class. Even if he flew slowly, he would soon reach the area where Jia Yan was. It's really scary. From a distance, he saw Jia Yan's huge giant mosquito body. Even though the body was not much bigger than him, it actually exuded such a terrifying sense of power that even the moment he saw Jia Yan, he felt his breath suffocate. This is a situation where strength is completely suppressed. Well, my lord, I didn't know that your arrival would be a long way off. The beetle creature is worthy of being a creature from the universe. It does not value face as much as the divine creature. When it saw Jia Yan, he immediately knew that his strength was far weaker than Jia Yan. He quickly put on a low profile and called, "Sir." "Well, you are very sensible, but you are different from those gods." Jia Yan was very satisfied with the knowledge of this stellar being. Yes, those gods are extremely pedantic. They talk about hundreds of thousands of years of inheritance and so on. Everyone thinks they are really gods. The beetle monster came to Jia Yan in a low voice. Of course, his vigilance was not eliminated. Even though he knew that he would lose more than he won in the face of such an existence, he had no intention of letting Jia Yan attack him. Naturally, Jia Yan would not attack him. "Okay, let's go and talk in your city. I just came to this planet and I have something to ask you," Jia Yan said lightly, ignoring the beetle creature behind him, and headed straight towards the central city where he was. The beetle creature behind Jia Yan had a strange light flashing in its insect-like compound eyes, but in the end it didn't dare to make any calculations and hurriedly followed. Even if he naturally has some trump cards, at least he can escape from this high-level star's entry-level powerhouse, but now that the two sides have not broken their skin, they are not in a hurry to take action. Of course, there is a question mark on whether the trump cards and methods he thinks are really effective against Jia Yan. But now it's really not time for the two sides to break up. "My lord, please come and sit in my hall." The beetle creature led Jia Yan with an attitude that surprised all his subordinates, making all the demigods and saints along the way understand that the flying creature was an extremely strong man, and they immediately responded to him. Jia Yan also lowered his head in great respect. After seeing the attitude of the long-horned creature toward Jia Yan, Bes raised his tail even more. The demigods guided him respectfully along the way, following Jia Yan and the long-horned creature. However, the conversation between the two stellar powerhouses made him slightly shocked. Because the beetle monster is introducing itself. "My lord, you can call me Heavenly Cowherd. I wonder what your name is." Jia Yan was slightly happy when he heard the name of the long-horned beetle, the long-lost beetle. It would be more catchy to call him Cowherd, but he didn't show any expression directly on his face. Instead, he responded lightly. "You can call me Jia Yan." This is what shocked the base behind him. Because he had always known that Jia Yan might have something to do with the black-haired human being Jia Yan, but now that he heard the God Lord say his name in person, he understood that he had always the Jia Yan envoy he saw was the avatar of this god. In other words, he has dealt with this Lord God so many times. Fortunately, I wasn't rude to Mr. Jia Yan before. Bes felt slightly grateful. Now that he knows Jia Yan's true identity, he finally understands why this Lord God has so much trust in him as soon as he appears. It turns out that he is Lord Jia Yan himself. The Lord Jia Yan with black hair and black eyes does not know him at all. It's not a divine envoy, but the god himself. After arriving at a palace, the beetle monster named Tianyulang was enough to make a group of divine waiters retreat. He looked at Bes and then looked at Jia Yan with a somewhat embarrassed expression. "Bes, please step down too." Jia Yan asked Bes to step down without any hesitation. Bes naturally obeyed and retreated. "My lord, are you from the outside world just now?" I wonder which nearby galaxy you are from. Bess just left and the beetle creature asked Jia Yan. I didn't come from the surrounding galaxies, but came here directly on a battleship from a very far away place. Jia Yan shook his head and replied. Well, I came directly. Do you need anything when you come to this planet? Cowherd asked in surprise that day. That's right, Jia Yan would not say that he fell into this planet by accident, but would express that he came directly to ask for something on this planet. I wonder what you want, sir. Tian Nialang had some guesses, but still asked Jia Yan. What I want is the crystal of faith. I am looking for you this time to ask the star-level experts from the outside world how to obtain the crystal of faith as quickly as possible on this planet. Jia Long did not beat around the bush. There is no tradition of beating around the bush among the strongest men in the universe. Everyone's time is precious. If you have time to beat around the bush, it's better to practice more strength. What you want is the crystal of faith. If you want it, there is still a part of it in my territory. You can take it. You have to know that our external stars cannot absorb faith as quickly as God's crystal, the crystal of faith produced in my territory. Apart from absorbing it myself, the rest is to exchange some resources with the gods. It is usually of no use, so just take it, sir. Tian Nialang was groaning in his heart. He knew that Jia Yan would not have any good intentions when he came, but he did not expect that it was for the crystal of faith. Even if they are star-level creatures, they do not have such a big demand for the absorption of the crystal of faith, but in fact the crystal of faith can exchange many benefits with the creatures of the divine system. Even if it is not good, if you bring out this divine star in the future, you can also. The outside world has become a more scarce resource, and the benefits are unknown. 898, you are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1362. There are many benefits to the crystal of faith, but since Jia Yan, a strong man who is stronger than the cowherd, wants it, he doesn't dare to hide it for himself. Use. If Jia Yan was really angered and allowed to take action, he might be killed. He had no choice but to spend money to eliminate the disaster and said that he would give Jia Yan a crystal of faith. He also said that the crystal of faith was of no use to him, but in fact his heart was bleeding. Haha, I still don't like your crystal of faith. I would like to ask how to obtain more crystals of faith. If you can help me, the benefits will be great for you. How about it? Jia Yan's words made the bull creature stunned for a while. Jia Yan was so loud that he directly said that he looked down on his crystal of faith. Does he know how many crystals of faith he has? Tiani Alang had no intention of giving all the crystals of faith to Jia Yan, but now he was startled, but he almost shouted out the number of crystals of faith in his heart. Fortunately, after he regained his composure, he reluctantly stopped because of fear. Mouth. Could it be that what Jia Yan said was irony? Can you force him to reveal all the crystals of faith? It's just a matter of time. But the superficial work still needs to be done. Since Jia Yan is pretending for him, he should also pretend it properly. It's like this. A small part of the crystals of faith on this planet are scattered among the major races and cities, and they have become the same thing as daily consumption and reserve funds. But if you want the big one, sir, you must snatch it from the hands of those so-called gods. The crystal of faith in their hands is at least 10 times more than that of our stellar powerhouses. After all, we really can't digest it. So many crystals of faith are usually exchanged for resources with them. Snatch it from the gods. After hearing the star's words, Jia Yan's expression flashed with strange color. But on the surface, there is no flaw in what the other party said, and it is also very reasonable. Even if the stellar class occupies about 1/3 of the territory on this planet, the demand for the crystal of faith is indeed not as high as that of the powerful gods. So it is also possible to exchange with them. What you said makes sense. So Lord Tian Nialang, I wonder if you are willing to join forces with me to plunder the gods. Jia Yan said calmly the words that made Tian Kalher jump up. Those words he just said casually, he didn't think Jia Yan would really want to go to war with all the gods. But I didn't expect that Jia Yan really thought so. He wants to wipe out all the gods on this planet. How many crystals of faith will he get? With such great greed, of course he would look down on the crystal of faith in his hand, but is his strength enough? Even if it's good enough, what does he need so many crystals of faith for? Well, Lord Jia Yan, you don't really want to rob the gods, do you? You have just arrived, and you don't know the situation on the Star of the Gods yet. You must know that although the strength of the gods is not as good as ours individually, their divine system is very clear and they help each other very much, so overall, our foreign stellar powerhouses are at a disadvantage, in my opinion. Unless you are a mid-level star-level powerhouse, it is impossible to fight with them. After all, the gods also have existences equivalent to the late-level star level. The beetle creature comforted Jia Yan. Of course, he didn't care if Jia Yan wanted to do something earth-shattering, but now it was obvious that this guy wanted to drag him into trouble. He didn't dare to really go to war with all the gods. Even if 2 gods besieged him, he would feel in danger, let alone being besieged by more gods. He doesn't want to die. Is it possible unless you are an intermediate star level? Haha. Jia Yan smiled and then turned his head. Heavenly cowherd, right? Let me ask you one last time, are you willing to join forces with me? There was a hint of killing intent in Jia Yan's words, and there was also an aura that was hidden but not revealed. He knows that he won't have too much time on this planet. Even if there are probably minerals on this planet that are more worthy of development and more valuable, they are too far away. He might as well just grab a lot of faith. The power of faith that others cannot absorb anyway is not a big problem to him at all. Now that you have the power, if you don't use it and take your time, wouldn't it be a waste of such terrible strength? Anyway, Jia Yan has already calculated that there is definitely no strong person on this planet who has the strength to resist him. Even if the gods join forces, he can easily escape from the encirclement and then fight back one by one. But without other helpers, he seemed a little lonely and weak. That's why we came to the nearest star-level biological territory. Let's not talk about whether it is strong or not. At least it can make Jia Yan, who is not familiar with this planet, no longer blind. But if the cowherd in front of me doesn't want to, then I'm sorry. He doesn't want the news to be revealed before Jia Yan starts planning. Lord Jia Yan, please speak nicely. I didn't say we won't join forces. Please speak nicely and don't be impatient. Tian Nialang felt that Jia Yan's earth-shattering strength was about to explode, and his demeanor changed instantly. He wanted to cry in his heart. He was doing well in this territory. Why did such a murderous god come? Even if other stars were stronger than him, if they came to his territory or encountered them elsewhere, they would at least be able to kill him. Taking into account the etiquette between strong men, when he came to Jia Yan, he was so overbearing that he didn't care about the etiquette between strong men. Little did he know that Jia Yan didn't disregard the etiquette of a strong man, but felt that the cowherd was not worthy of his respect. Perhaps in the eyes of ordinary stars such as Tiani Alang, Jia Yan is a being who can reach the early-late stage of a star, but in fact, Jia Yan's combat effectiveness, self-assessment, has definitely reached the strength of an ordinary star's mid-level. The strength of the mid-level star level is completely different from that of the primary level star level. So when facing the cowherd of ordinary strength, does he need to respect him? In this universe where the strong are respected, the rules are that simple. If you have the strength, you can just bulldoze everything. There is no need to talk about face or etiquette. Haha, That's good. I'll give you another minute to think about it. If you don't have an answer after 1 minute, I would have disagreed with my proposal. That would be a pity. Jia Yan said regret, but there was no regret at all. He was simply trying to force the beetle monster. In his compound eyes, a strange light flashed, and the killing intent almost turned into reality. Although Jia Yan usually hides his strength, he doesn't like to release his strength and put too much pressure on others. But now he has just absorbed the blood of a star-level starry sky ghost, and his strength cannot be well hidden. Therefore, in this case, the pressure brought to this long-horned monster is extremely terrifying and extremely domineering. He was struggling in his heart. Of course, he knew that Jia Yan's strength was extremely terrifying, but in fact, when Jia Yan's murderous intention filled the air, he had a different feeling. This guy's power is so oppressive. Could it be that his actual combat power is even more terrifying than that of an average early stage and late stage powerhouse? Stellar primary peak. The beetle monster immediately thought of this term. He knew that in this vast starry sky, some creatures were able to kill enemies beyond the level either because of the talent of their race or because of their excellent talent. The Jia Yan in front of him seemed to be a junior star. It's a high level one, but the combat power it actually feels exceeds that level. Doesn't that mean that he is equivalent to the initial peak of a star? On this star of the gods, there is no one who is a peak of the first level, regardless of the gods or the stars. After thinking for a while, the longhorn monster finally made a decision. He didn't know whether Jia Yan was the first level star of a star, but if he didn't agree now, there might be a fierce battle next. With the pressure Jia Yan revealed, he felt that it would at least be a near-death battle. In that case, it is better to follow this strong man who is definitely not weak. Maybe he will really do something big. I'm not talking about whether I can really rob all the gods. I'm just talking about robbing a small part. If you reward yourself again, it will be enough for him to squander for a long time in the future. When the time comes, he will leave the divine star and fly far away. It will be difficult for the gods on the divine star to cause trouble for him. Sir, I am willing to cooperate with you. After figuring it out, the longhorn monster quickly lowered his head and spoke respectfully to Jia Yan. Oh, very good, you made a very correct decision. Jia Yan smiled faintly. He didn't think at all that he was forcing the other party. Okay, now we need to expand our manpower first. Tell me, there are several star-level powerhouses and gods near this area. In the future, we will focus on this area to attack all around. Jia Yan defined this operation. I plan to define this action as the battle to destroy the gods. The battle to destroy the gods. The cowherd behind Jia Yan was shaken, and he quickly looked at Jia Yan quietly, and then smiled bitterly in his heart. He originally thought that Jia Yan was robbing someone, or threatening some gods or gods to surrender their faith. Forget about the crystal, even the name is so aggressive. Doesn't that mean that future wars will be devastating? Destroy God. There are so many gods on this planet. After they are destroyed, they shouldn't be called the planet of gods anymore. Stellar star? It doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound good. Tian Nialang smiled bitterly. He actually thought too far, but what this adult said was really too big, and he was afraid that he would be trapped in the first step. Sir, the strength of the divine system in our area is still good. Even if it is not as strong as you, it is still far behind, the beetle monster said to Jia Yan with a wry smile. Huh? You should have specific information. Take it out for me and tell me about it. Jia Yan responded lightly. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1363. The divine system mentioned by the long-horned monster is actually the one where the flower god belongs. QX. There are more than 30 gods in a divine system, and there are as many as 2 powerful ones. That's why the Longhorn monster said that even if the strength of this divine system is not as powerful as Jiayan, it is almost the same. After all, sometimes quantity can make up for the quality gap. But does the Longhorn monster really know Jiayan's strength? Jiayan looked at the information given by the beetle monster and smiled non-committally. Is this information about nearby star-level experts? Let me take a look. Jiayan picked up the information on the star-level powerhouses. There were not that many of them, there were only 5 of them, and each one was about as powerful as the beetle monster in front of him. Tianyi Alang sighed and said, the 6 of us are already star-level experts on the front line. Behind us, there is a land occupied by star-level experts that is difficult for the gods to reach. And among us star-level experts, although there is no explicit agreement between us, if we are invaded by the gods, other star-level powerhouses may still help each other, but they are not as sincere and go all out as the gods. Only then did Jiayan realize that the stellar powerhouses on this planet would also help each other. What's your relationship with these 6 guys? If possible, can they be recruited under my command? Jiayan asked calmly. He doesn't have many manpower. If possible, he wants to recruit other star-level subordinates as much as possible, even if the combat power is not strong, as long as he can save Jiayan from being surrounded. What's more, in fact, the star-level powerhouses are stronger than the gods. Looking at these 6 star-level powers alone, they are like nails driven into the territory of the gods. There is nothing they can do about them. Although the bigger reason is that the territory of stellar powerhouses behind them exists, but this also shows that these 6 people are not too weak. Well, let me put it this way, sir, most of us foreign star-level experts came to this kingdom of gods because they were unwilling to fight to the death with others in the battlefield outside. You want us to stick to our territory? Yes, but if we have to go all out to launch a war with the gods, I think it will be difficult. Oh, you're talking about you? So is it the same for you? So you agreed to my excuse, but it was just to deceive me. Facing Jiayan's nonsense, Tianyi Alang almost cried. My lord, I didn't say that. Don't get me wrong. I am willing to fight for your lord. If we can drive away all the gods in this god star, it will be a great achievement for us. Are you talking about merit again? Jiayan thought this should be something basic, but he didn't want to ask any more questions. After all, this should be some kind of organization, but Jiayan doesn't think he will stay in this stellar battlefield for much longer. When his strength improves a little more, he will change directions, even if there is any huge constant here. The Star Powerhouse organization has nothing to do with him anymore. That's all, just wait here for my news. I'll go out and talk to these 5 guys in person. When I come back, it's when we launch an attack on these 30 gods. Don't let me off the hook. I understand. Okay, I see. Flying out from the heavenly cowherd divine palace, Jiayan did not take the base with him, but prepared to fight quickly to quickly capture the other 5 star-level experts and encourage them to cooperate with him. If they were unwilling, Jiayan's certain means must be used. However, there is actually a certain alliance between these stars. This is not good news for me. Let's see how the Star Alliance will react after I have done this. After thinking so much, Jiayan quickly arrived at the territory of a stellar powerhouse. He didn't have any notification at all, nor did he have any hidden aura. He just released a terrifying aura and rushed into the opponent's territory. This unreserved malice caused the stars in the territory to fly out immediately. Who dares to come to my territory to look for, As soon as the star level flew out, he felt the terrifying primary strength of the high-level star in Jiayan's body, and he quickly stopped talking. You are the star-level lord here, right? I'm going to do something big, so please cooperate with me, Jiayan said directly without beating around the bush. But, my lord, I have long stopped taking orders from anyone. Boom. As soon as the stellar star finished speaking, a terrifying explosion sound appeared above his head. It turns out that Jia Yan deliberately used the power of brain waves to create a space explosion in the sky. A cloud of fire bloomed in the sky. Although it was an explosion that reached an altitude of more than 10 kilometers, it still transferred a lot of heat to the ground, causing some weak creatures to wail. The true meaning of this power is not even seen on the surface. What? He actually has such power. This, the star-level creature's whole demeanor changed drastically, and then after some hesitation, he knelt down. Sir, I am willing to send you some instructions. You must know that the terrifying explosive power released by Jia Yan is not just simple power. As a star-level powerhouse, he can see more. So he lowered his head willingly. Okay, there are 4 more. Jia Yan glanced at the star-level man lightly, told him to go to the territory where the heavenly cowherd was, and then headed towards the next star-level powerhouse. Jia Yan's operation can be described as extremely domineering. On this planet where the strongest known strength is not as powerful as his, he is not afraid of any star-level powerhouse. Even if he is besieged, he does not think he will after being caught. What he had was a subdimensional talent. Not long after, the 6 star-level creatures gathered in the star-level palace of the cowherd. Jia Yan has not returned yet, and the 6 stars are all looking at each other there. They are all considered neighbors, but some have a good relationship, some have a bad relationship, and they are even enemies who have fought against each other before. But now, under the intimidation of that Lord Jia Yan, they have no choice but to gather together in one place, and they have no choice but to no longer radiate hostility to the hostile stellar class in bitterness. After all, these guys who don't like him may become his fighting partners. Boom. While they were still whispering to each other about something, especially about Jia Yan's origins, a terrifying aura came quickly. Jia Yan led the base and came slowly. Bess, who was following Jia Yan, felt at this moment that the whole world was unreal. Because even though he knew his master's strength, he would never have imagined that Jia Yan could subdue the 6 terrifying outsider gods nearby in one breath, and even made them wait with great willingness. As for Bess himself, although he only had a mere saint-level strength, none of the 6 gods dared to show any disrespect to him. This makes Bess even more like living in a dream. Once upon a time, he had such a sweet dream, but he woke up in the dream. After all, it was an impossible dream for a group of gods to respect him. But now this dream has come true so easily. Grown-ups. Master Jia Yan is here. One by one, the everlasting levels saw Jia Yan arriving. The cowherd was originally quite big that day, but now it felt a little small. They stood up in the palace and greeted Jia Yan with great respect. Well, you all should find your place and stand. Jia Yan said lightly. Even though he is now facing 6 star-level creatures, he does not have any fear. In fact, there were several stellar-level creatures just now. They suggested waiting for Jia Yan to appear and launch a joint attack on him, but they were declined by a few conservative stellar-level creatures. In fact, Jia Yan saw all this, and even the secret transmission between them, Jia Yan could vaguely judge. After all, today's Jia Yan is a bit more powerful than the average star class. Even these 6 star classes seem to have some strength, but for Jia Yan, they may not be as strong as those star academic fields that were chasing him before. Any star in the army is powerful. You must know that those pursuers are all stellar graduates from the stellar academic field. They are geniuses themselves. Even if they have less actual combat experience than them, their strength is definitely superior. You are not even afraid of such a star level besieging Jia Yan, but are you still afraid of the 6 star levels in front of you? These guys didn't choose to besiege, which means that things can still be operated. Jia Yan nodded lightly. I believe Tianyi Alang has told you just now that I am preparing to launch a war against the gods, with the goal of seizing the crystal of faith in their hands. Do you have any opinions? Jia Yan asked calmly from the main seat to a group of stars below. Some of this group of stellar powerhouses look like birds, and some look like wild boars. Anyway, the races are very complex, but each one is huge, and there are many that can reach 1 kilometer or even more than 1 kilometer. Sir, we understand your thoughts, but we have some doubts about your ultimate goal, because what Tianyi Alang told us is that you are planning to seize all the gods on the entire planet. I don't think this is just for us. Something that can be accomplished in 7-star levels. A star hesitated for a while and expressed his biggest unwillingness. Because even though Jia Yan's displayed strength was stronger than them, he still didn't think that Jia Yan could really lead them to do such a defiant thing. Oh? Do you think I can't lead you to do it? Oh, in fact, if I weren't familiar with these gods, I could make them submit by myself. Do you believe it? Of course, with your help now, or you want to, the solution is to recruit more stars to help, then our chances of winning will be greater. I wonder if you are willing. Jia Yan thought for a while and added another sentence. I only need 50% of the crystal of faith that I got in the end, and you will share the remaining 50%, and you will allocate it to the people you can attract. Of course, I won't give it to anyone I can't attract, there are so many quotas. Just see for yourself how to operate it RW.